let's resume. Before going to the break, we were responsible for discussing India-Myanmar relation. Two relations remain. Let's complete those two relations. These are short relations which can be completely easily in 1 hour. Now, one is your India-Afghanistan relation. See, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, Afghanistan was used as a buffer state by the British Empire, British government, and was used as a buffer state against Russia because the borders were that of USSR. Clear? Please repeat Susta region dispute. First of all, one who has asked me what is military junta. Military junta is nothing but military regime. And second, Susta region dispute is what? See, as far as the Kalapani dispute is concerned, Kalapani dispute, Nepal says that's a part of its Sudur Paschim district. India says it's a part of what? Pithoragarh district. But Susta is a region which is with India and it's a part of West Champaran district of Bihar. And this is claimed by Nepal to be its parts of Nawalparasi district. So Nepal says that it is the part of Nawalparasi district. So the claim is made over the Susta region. But this is presently under India's control. Now, as far as India-Afghanistan dispute relation is concerned, remember that Afghanistan was used by British. Now, it was used by British as a buffer state against Russia. And Afghanistan consists of what? It consists of a number of warlords, a number of provinces. The legal assembly of these warlords are called as what? It's called as the Loya Jirga. Afghanistan has many tags. Afghanistan has been called as what? It is called as the graveyard of superpower. Graveyard of superpower, why? Because no superpower, even US was not victorious in Afghanistan because of the difficult terrain that Afghanistan has. It is also called as what? It is also called as the backyard of Pakistan because of ethnic similarities that Pakistan has with Afghanistan. It is called as a backyard of Pakistan. It is also called as the strategic depth of Pakistan that we have discussed, that why it would be called as the strategic depth of Pakistan. But if we talk about Afghanistan, the relevance of Afghanistan is what? First of all, it is responsible for guiding India's external security. And why? It guides India's external security because it's a part of extended neighborhood of India. Not extended neighborhood of India. Clear? And second is what? Second is that turmoil in Afghanistan can affect Jammu and Kashmir. Turmoil in Afghanistan can affect Fargana Valley. Fargana Valley is situated where? Fargana Valley is situated in the Central Asian republics at the intersection of Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan and also Uzbekistan. It is very famous because this region, Siyar Darya flows through this region and this is considered to be a very fertile region. So that's called as, that is referred to as the Fargana Valley. But Fargana Valley is also a region of ethnic conflicts. So turmoil in Afghanistan can affect the Fargana Valley. Turmoil in Afghanistan can affect Jammu and Kashmir. Turmoil in Afghanistan can affect Iran also. Because if you look at the demography of Afghanistan, the demography of Afghanistan consists of more than 40% of Pashtuns. Pashtuns are present in the southern and the southern eastern part of Afghanistan, where it borders Pakistan. But it also consists of Uzbeks, it also consists of Tajiks, it also consists of Hazara Siyas. And the problem is what? That when Taliban emerged, the emergence of Taliban in Afghanistan, first Taliban emerged earlier and again it has emerged as the regime of Afghanistan, which is called as Taliban 2.0. So one was Taliban 1.0 and second is Taliban 2.0. Now Taliban emerged. Taliban is an outfit of mainly Sunnis. So it would be maybe that it is possible that the Hazara Siyas would be pushed towards the border that it has with Iran. So that is a concern. Turmoil in Afghanistan can also affect the Xinjiang province of China because nearby located Xinjiang province of China. And you know that Xinjiang province of China demands separation from China as it is in a confederation with China from 1948-49. So that's one thing. Another thing is what? That as far as Afghanistan is concerned, when you are talking about Afghanistan, so as far as Afghanistan is concerned, this region, Afghanistan, now is also relevant for India. Why? Because it acts as a gateway to the Central Asian republics. That's why in the year 2016, when we can see that we signed an agreement with Iran and also Afghanistan, which is called as the Trilateral Transport and Transit Agreement, Trilateral Transport and Transit Agreement for the development of Chabahar Port. Clear? So the significance of Afghanistan is what? That it acts as what? It acts as the gateway to Central Asian republics because it borders 3 Central Asian republics. Clear? It borders 3 Central Asian republics: Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. So that is, and also the Central Asian republics are relevant for us. Why? Significance of Central Asian republics is why? Because these republics are considered to be the source of energy, all source of energy, oil, gas, hydroelectricity, nuclear. So all source of energy they are for us, and India is energy. So that's the relevance of what? Relevance of Afghanistan for us. Clear? When we talk about the rise of Taliban, Taliban in the first phase was mainly developed by US, the Mujahideens, to fight against whom? To fight against Russians. Clear? Because in the Afghan crisis of the 1980s, it ended in 1988. We can see the Najib government of Afghanistan was supported by Russia and the rebels were supported by Pakistan and US. So this is the time when the emergence of Taliban takes place. Emergence of Taliban takes place. Also, we can see Taliban can be classified into 2 types. One is Afghan Taliban and second is called as what? Second is called as the Pakistan Taliban. Pakistan Taliban is Tehreek-e Taliban. Tehreek-e Taliban. Afghan Taliban can be divided into 2. One is called as the Haqqani network, which is a group of a network of insurgent groups. Clear? And that this group is extremist, which was responsible for fighting the NATO, US-led NATO allies in Afghanistan. And second was the Quetta Surah. Quetta Surah is considered to be a moderate group of Taliban. Clear? So it emerged like this. And as far as Taliban is concerned, the emergence of Taliban was also due to the fact that Russia's power needed to be checked. And due to emergence of Taliban, we can see one reason for formation of SCO was also the emergence of Taliban. Clear? But Taliban is known for its radical activities. And all those radical activities, you know about that. We cannot make a list of that. Not providing education to women. And these radical activities, they have repeated again. So it's not that the Taliban 2.0 is a changed lot. Not at all. They haven't reformed. The same type of practices is there. Clear? And these practices are inhuman, discriminatory in nature. But the question is that why then we are engaging ourselves with Taliban? We haven't established formal diplomatic ties with the Taliban regime of Afghanistan, but we have opened the Kabul embassy. We are engaging ourselves with Afghanistan. Now, engagement of India with Afghanistan is for 2 reasons. One is humanitarian concern. We think about the people of Afghanistan. All of them are not supporters of Taliban. Clear? And second is what? Second is the external security of India. external security of India. So there are two reasons for our engagement with Taliban. Clear? Although we can see clashes between Pakistan and Taliban takes place these days, but that is due to the border dispute between Pakistan and Taliban, because Taliban does not accept the Durand line and they want the Durand line to be extended eastward. Clear? And main area, this area is that of the Pakhtuns. So Pakhtuns are situated on both sides of the border and they always demand a autonomous region. So that's the reason between the clashes that has taken place. Why not we use through India-Afghanistan border to gateway to Central Asian? Why need to develop Chabahar port? See, India-Afghanistan border, since POK is present, directly we are not sharing border with Afghanistan. Clear? Since POK is present, directly we are not sharing border with Afghanistan. And as far as relation with Pakistan is concerned, relation with Pakistan is not as developed that it would be giving you access through its territory to Afghanistan. Although I have said that if Pakistan has a sound mind and thinks about it, India's trade route with Central Asian republics and the CPEC intersection point would be in Pakistan, and this would be responsible for development of Pakistan on a large scale. Clear? Fine. So first of all, you have to know this. Afghanistan was considered by the British, India-Afghanistan relation. Afghanistan was considered by the British as a buffer state between British India and Russia, as a buffer state between British and Russia, Afghanistan is a country of warlords and provinces. Afghanistan is a country of warlords and provinces. It is referred to as the gateway, it is referred to as the graveyard of superpowers. It is referred to as graveyard of superpowers. As no superpower emerged victorious in Afghanistan. As no superpower emerged victorious in Afghanistan. And that's not only the case. It is also called as what? It is also called as the backyard of Pakistan due to ethnic similarities. Right on. It is also called as the backyard of Pakistan. It is also called as the backyard of Pakistan. Due to ethnic similarities. It is also called as the backyard of Pakistan due to ethnic similarities. Clear? And as far as turmoil in Afghanistan is concerned, turmoil in Afghanistan can affect many regions. Around turmoil in Afghanistan, can affect many regions, which includes Jammu and Kashmir, and Xinjiang province of China, Clear? And it can also influence the Fargana Valley. Write down. It can also influence the Fargana Valley. which is situated at the intersection of. It can also influence the Fergana Valley, which is situated at the intersection of Tajikistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Fergana Valley. And Fergana Valley is what? Fergana Valley is a very fertile valley. Sorry. Because of the Siyar Darya. And this is not only called as the football of the Central Asian republics, but it's also an area of ethnic conflict. Write down. Fergana Valley is not only referred to as the football of Central Asian Republic. Fergana Valley is not only referred to as the football of Central Asian Republic. Football of Central Asian Republic. Football of Central Asian Republic. Not only referred to as the football of Central Asian Republic, but is also the area of ethnic conflict. But is also the area of ethnic conflict. Ethnic conflict. And turmoil in Afghanistan can not only affect this, turmoil in Afghanistan can push the Hazara Shias towards its boundary with Iran. This can create problem for Iran. Write down. Afghanistan consists of 40 to 45% Pakhtuns, 40 to 45% Pakhtuns, more than 20% Hazara Shias, more than 20% Hazara Shias, Hazara Shias, Uzbeks, Tajiks, and we can see with the rise of Taliban, because Taliban is what? Taliban is Sunni. So with the rise of Taliban, the Hazara Shias can be pushed towards Iran, which can create problem for Iran. Right on. With the rise of Taliban, the Hazara Shias would be pushed towards Iran. Can be, not would be. Can be pushed towards Iran. Can be pushed towards Iran. Now this may create problem for Iran. Clear? And there is also one area of Russia which is called Chechnya, which is demanding separation from Russia. So we can see that turmoil in Afghanistan can also affect Chechnya, which is demanding secession from Russia. Write down. Turmoil in Afghanistan can also affect Chechnya, which is demanding separation from Russia, Now question is, since both India and Bangladesh struggles daily to serve food and basic needs to its citizens, then why we are taking responsibility of refugees like Rohingyas? Moreover, when India is already facing crisis due to the infiltration of refugees from Bangladesh. See, the question is correct. You are also correct. The problem is humanity. And the problem is humanity. Why? Where would be the Rohingyas going? They were from which region? They were from Indian subcontinent only. Pakistan has not accepted the Rohingyas. And Rohingyas won't prefer Pakistan also. Why should one go to Pakistan, which is a bankrupt nation? Even Rohingyas won't prefer Pakistan. Clear? So the thing is that if a preference is given for the Rohingyas even, they would never prefer Pakistan. The best bet for them is what? Their ancestral home, that is India, and also Bangladesh. Clear? And sometimes what happens when refugee problem occurs, you cannot allow them or deport them to die. No, this is inhuman. So if suppose I have a foodstuff, I would be sharing with them. And this is nothing but a humanitarian gesture for those people who originally belong to the Indian subcontinent only. Clear? We know that we have a problem. We cannot feed ourselves. But this is nothing but a humanitarian crisis. Imagine Bangladesh pushing the Rohingyas towards the Basarchar, knowing that this island is prone to floods. So you are putting them to death. And this cannot be tolerated in a civilized society. You can see many NGOs from India, particularly the NGOs who are functioning and who are responsible for functioning in the Sikh Gurdwaras. They went to Bangladesh and they are responsible regularly visiting Bangladesh and feeding the Rohingyas. Clear? So, if this is the concern, sometimes you can have influx of refugees due to not your mistake, but it can be due to turmoil in some other nations. But should be able to reject them completely if they are on the verge of death coming to our doorsteps? Is that human? Clear? So we have to think about it. You are perfectly all right. Your question is perfectly all right based on some reasons, but these reasons are empirical, and the reasons that I am providing is ideological. Clear? Now let's come to the other part. So all these areas can be affected. Now the significance of Afghanistan for India is why? Because it is considered to be a gateway to the Central Asian republics. Write down. Afghanistan is significant for India. Afghanistan is significant for India. Significant for India as it is considered to be. As it is considered to be. The gateway for, as it is considered to be, the gateway for Central Asian republics, as it is considered to be, the gateway for Central Asian republics, Central Asian republics. Clear? And that's the reason why India signed the trilateral transport and transit agreement with Afghanistan and Iran. Write down. It is the reason that India signed. It is the reason that India signed. India signed the trilateral transport and transit agreement. Transport and transit agreement. With Afghanistan and Iran. With Afghanistan and Iran. And you would have studied about this agreement with Ratishad, that this agreement is what? This agreement, this route would be starting from Mumbai, would be entering Iran at Chabahar. Chabahar is only 70 to 80 kilometers away from Gwadar, which is the part of string of pearls theory. Which is a part of the string of pearls theory. It would be taking the road and rail route of Iran-Pakistan border to enter Afghanistan, and Afghanistan entry would be at Zaranj. Then it would be taking a westward turn and joining all the following the Garland Road, would be reaching the northern part of Afghanistan, which is called as Mazar-e-Sharif, from where you can easily enter the Central Asian republics. Central Asian republics. India believes in the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. India also donated Go Island to Myanmar, locomotive engine to Bangladesh, Divangiri to Bhutan, etc. Very good. But neighbor countries about neighbors should also think about India. Good. And Pak and China is called to enemy. Bangladesh, Myanmar making close relationship with China. Bhutan is anti-India. Nepal has disputes with India also. India should do her karma only and not expect any results from neighbors. What should be India's stand in this regard? See, we follow the policy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one. And Nishikama Karma also. Why? Because Nishikama Karma says that good needs to be done for its own sake. Good needs to be done for its own sake. So we are not only following the policy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but we are also following, and that's the foundation of our foreign policy. Sir, is only humanity live in India? All over the world, Bangladeshi refugees in India, Rohingya refugees in India, Bangladeshi refugees, they are not Bangladeshi refugees. Influx of Bangladeshi takes place in India. Refugees are due to some concern, but if they are coming due to job opportunities to India, they are illegal migration only. They are not refugees as such. Afghanistan refugees are in India. Afghanistan refugees are few in number only. They are present in Delhi, the surrounding areas of Delhi only, mainly Delhi. And yes, it's a concern because entry into India is very easy from the Bangladesh border, through the Bangladesh border. So what we need to do is we have to fortify our borders. And the government is taking those steps to fortify our borders so that intrusion, illegal migration does not take place in these areas. The government is concerned about it. And they are really concerned about it, and they are taking steps. It's not that humanity is only live in India. They are taking steps. That can only be the answer to that. So trilateral transport agreement was signed with Afghanistan and Iran. Now that's the significance. And second is what? That Afghanistan is the strategic depth of Pakistan. So better relationship with Afghanistan is also necessary. Write down. Afghanistan is the strategic depth of Pakistan. And you know what is strategic depth, we have discussed. Afghanistan is the strategic depth of Pakistan. As such, better relationship with better relationship with Afghanistan is essential. As such, better relationship with Afghanistan is essential. Relationship with Afghanistan is essential. Is that clear? So we should have better ties, good ties with Afghanistan. Clear? So significance is that. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, since it is a part of our neighborhood, it is also responsible for governing external security of India. Write down. Since it is a part of our neighborhood, it is also responsible for governing. External security considerations of India. External security considerations of India. Security considerations of India. Considerations of India. Clear? And the concern of India is what? When we talk of our relationship with Afghanistan, the concern is mainly Pakistan. Pakistan never wants well-developed ties between India and Afghanistan. Write down. Pakistan never wants well-developed ties between Afghanistan and India. Pakistan never wants well-developed ties between Afghanistan and India. See, as far as India's role in Afghanistan is concerned, India does not want a political stake in Afghanistan. Not at all. India's role in Afghanistan is of what is of construction, is of development. That is India's role in Afghanistan. And this is the reason why Afghan people voted India as the most trustworthy nation. Clear, most trustworthy nation, because India is responsible for establishment of libraries, the parliament, bridges in Afghanistan. So it was voted as the most trustworthy nation. Although US always wanted India to play a significant role in Afghanistan, which India rejected. Clear? So India's role in Afghanistan is of construction and development. And India has established a number of projects in Afghanistan. Write down. India's role in Afghanistan is of construction and development. Is of construction and development. And India has established. And India has established a number of projects in Afghanistan. And India has established a number of projects in Afghanistan. A number of projects in Afghanistan. Has established a number of projects in Afghanistan. Clear? So India is responsible for establishing a number of projects as such also. Now, India was voted as the trustworthy nation, most trustworthy nation by the Afghan people. Right down. India was also voted. India was also voted as the most trustworthy nation. As the most trustworthy nation. Trustworthy nation by the Afghan people. As the most trustworthy nation. Trustworthy nation by the Afghan people. By the Afghan people. Afghan people. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, India has established what? India has established in Afghanistan uh, the Salma Dam 2016, and India is responsible for also the Shahtos project, which would be providing water to Kabul. Kabul. India is also responsible for extracting iron ore in Haji Kak. Haji Kak is one of the biggest iron ore mines in Asia. For this purpose, India was responsible for forming what is called as AFISCO. AFISCO means Afghanistan Iron and Steel Consortium. Clear? Afghanistan Iron and Steel Consortium for this purpose. So all these efforts have been made by India in Afghanistan. Now, India has developed a number of libraries, bridges, roads, a number of libraries, bridges, roads, roads in Afghanistan, Parliament House in Afghanistan, and was also given the contract of, extraction of iron ore, and was also given the contract of extraction of iron ore from Haji Kak, one of the biggest iron ore reserves in Asia. From Haji Kak, one of the biggest iron ore reserves in Asia. One of the biggest iron ore reserves in Asia. Iron ore reserves in Asia. So India was given the contract. Clear? And also you can see, with the help of India, the Salma Dam over the Hari River was constructed in Afghanistan with the help of India. So we can cite some examples here. With the help of India, the Salma Dam over the Hari River, was constructed in Afghanistan. The Salma Dam over the Hari River was constructed in Afghanistan. Was constructed in Afghanistan. Clear. And India has established AFISCO, Afghanistan Iron and Steel Consortium also. Renowned. India has established AFISCO. India has established AFISCO. The Afghanistan Iron Ore, Iron Steel, Afghanistan Iron Steel Consortium also. Consortium of Indian companies. Consortium of Indian companies. Indian companies, AFISCO. Clear. So all these steps have been taken by India. Fine. And we can see that Afghanistan is not only strategically important for us, but also it acts as a transit point for energy supply from India from the Central Asian republics. Clear? Because Central Asian republics are rich in oil, gas, hydroelectricity and nuclear fuel. Right down. Afghanistan also acts as a transit point, for supply of energy from Central Asian republics, for supply of energy from Central Asian republics, supply of energy from Central Asian republics, supply of energy from Central Asian republics. As Central Asian republics are rich in, oil and gas, hydroelectricity, oil and gas, hydroelectricity, and also nuclear fuel, See, there was an agreement which was signed between Pakistan and the Central Asian republics, which is called as what? Which is called as CASA 1000. CASA 1000 means Central Asia, South Asia 1000. So this Pakistan will be supplied from the Central Asian republics the hydroelectricity. So that's called as CASA 1000. We were responsible for signing an agreement which is called as what? Which is called as TAPI. So the TAPI pipeline agreement was signed in the year 2015, and gas from Turkmenistan, clear, would be transferred to Pakistan and India through Afghanistan. Clear. So Central Asian republics gas, so Caspian Sea gas would be coming from, and this has been supported by ADB. Write down the TAPI gas pipeline, project. The TAPI gas pipeline project was finalized in the year 2015, and an agreement was signed. And we can see this agreement has been supported by whom? Second, by the ADB, that is Asian Development Bank. Write down. This agreement has been supported by the ADB, Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank. Clear? Fine. Now, the concerns between India and Afghanistan is what? The main concern for India in Afghanistan is the rise of Taliban 2.0. Although India's engagement with Afghanistan continues. We haven't established diplomatic ties with Afghanistan, but our engagement with Taliban continues. And we haven't established diplomatic ties with Afghanistan because of its brutal activities, because of its radical ideology. So that's the reason. That's the reason. But our engagement with Afghanistan continues, and it continues because of not only security of India, but also India wants to carry out the development projects in Afghanistan. Clear? With the write down with the rise of Taliban 2.0, with the rise of Taliban 2.0, rise of Taliban 2.0, India's engagement with Afghanistan continues. India's engagement with Afghanistan continues. Afghanistan continues. But India has not established diplomatic ties with Afghanistan. But India has not established diplomatic ties with Afghanistan. Diplomatic ties with Afghanistan. And why? Because of radical ideology of Taliban. Write down. Because of radical ideology of Taliban. Because of radical ideology of Taliban. Radical ideology of Taliban. Radical ideology of Taliban. Clear? So that has not been done. But we can see we opened the Kabul embassy has been opened by India. And the main reason is what? The main reason is India's external security consideration, and India wants to carry on its development work in Afghanistan for the people of Afghanistan. Right now, India has opened its embassy in Kabul. India has reopened its embassy in Kabul. Reopened its embassy in Kabul and wants to carry on development activities for the Afghan people. Wants to carry on development activities for the Afghan people. For the Afghan people. Although another concern for India is external security perspective. Another concern for India is external security perspective. External security perspective. See, this is not only the concern. There are groups which are rising in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And one such radical group is called as what? One such radical group is called as ISIS Khorasan. So ISIS Khorasan is for Khorasan province, and Khorasan province should be carved out of the Central Asian republics, Afghanistan and Iran. So India wants to also check ISIS Khorasan. Right down. India also wants to check. India also wants to check the emergence of ISIS Khorasan. ISIS Khorasan, which is a radical group, and is an affiliate of ISIS, and is an affiliate of ISIS, and is an affiliate of ISIS. ISIS. Is that clear? Affiliate of ISIS. ISIS. Is that clear? Fine. And as far as the US Taliban peace deal was concerned, the US Taliban peace deal stated also that Taliban won't be using the Afghan soil or any of its associate agency won't be using the Taliban soil for attack against US or its allies. This was a condition which was laid down. Clear? This was a condition which was laid down. But and India also, when it participated in the intra-Afghan talks, which was held at Doha, India said that the government in Afghanistan should be Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, and Afghan-controlled. So India's policy is that the government in Afghanistan should be Afghan-led, Afghan-controlled, and Afghan-owned. Right of the US Taliban peace talks of 2020, the US Taliban peace talks of 2020 laid down the condition that the US Taliban peace talks of 2020 laid down the condition that Taliban or any of its associate, should not use the Afghan soil. Taliban or any of its associate should not use the Afghan soil for attack against US or its allies, and its allies. And on the other hand, this peace talk also said that US would be vacating from, US forces would be withdrawing from Afghanistan. Clear? But with the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan, the vulnerability of Central Asian republics and also Xinjiang province enhances. That's another thing, that the vulnerability would be enhancing. Clear? But on the other hand, when we talk about this problem, we can see that India was a participant in the intra-Afghan talks which was conducted at Doha, and India's policy is very clear that any government in Afghanistan should be Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, and Afghan-controlled. Right down. India was a participant in intra-Afghan talks, conducted at Doha, and India's policy on Afghanistan is very clear, that the government of Afghanistan should be Afghan-owned, that the government in Afghanistan should be Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled, and also Afghan-led, So Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled, and Afghan-led. Clear? Fine. But one concern of India is that China is today the biggest investor in Afghanistan. So China's policy on Afghanistan has changed. China's policy on Afghanistan was of a calculated indifference, and now the policy is towards constructive engagement with Afghanistan. So that's how the policy has changed. Right on. Another concern for India is the growing Chinese influence in Afghanistan. And China is a influencer in all the relations that we have with our neighboring countries. Growing Chinese influence in Afghanistan. China is today the biggest investor in Afghanistan. And you can see an area. This is suppose the map of Afghanistan. There's a strip of land which intrudes inside the Chinese territory. Now this is called as what? This is called as the Wakhan corridor. And this is of strategic importance to Afghanistan. Clear? So Wakhan corridor. So you can see China has developed optical fiber linkage with Afghanistan through the Wakhan corridor. Right on, China has developed optical fiber linkage with Afghanistan, optical fiber linkage with Afghanistan through the Wakhan corridor, optical fiber linkage with Afghanistan through the Wakhan corridor, Wakhan corridor. Clear? And China has also signed a pact with Afghanistan along with Central Asian Republics nation like Turkmenistan and Tajikistan, which is called as TACT. Right down. China has also signed a pact with Afghanistan and Central Asian Republics. Afghanistan and Central Asian Republics. Central Asian Republics. Central Asian Republics of Turkmenistan, Turkmenistan and Tajikistan for supply of gas, called TACT, See, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, China, Tajikistan. So this pipeline would be called as what? This pipeline project is called as TACT. Clear? So one can say, one can derive the conclusion that one concern for India is what? The Chinese interference. So China's engagement with Afghanistan is what? Initially, the policy of China which was followed was of calculated indifference. But now the policy which is followed is of constructive engagement. Right down. Initially, the policy followed by China, on Afghanistan was of calculated, indifference was of calculated indifference. But today the policy is of constructive, engagement. Today the policy is of constructive engagement. Clear? And I have told you the difference is what? That when you talk about Taliban can be broadly divided into two categories. One is your Afghan Taliban and second is your Pakistan Taliban. Pakistan Taliban is called as what? It is called as Tehreek-e-Taliban. And Afghan Taliban can be divided into two parts. One is called as what? One is referred to as Haqqani Network. And second is called as what? Second is called as Quetta Surah. So Haqqani Network is what? Haqqani Network is a network of insurgent groups, and this network of insurgent groups was responsible for attacking the US-led coalition forces in Afghanistan, and Haqqani Network is considered to be an extremist organization. Whereas on the other hand, the second type of Afghan Taliban, which is called as Quetta Surah would be considered as moderate in nature. So all these are the things that you have to remember in India-Afghan ties. Clear? Now let's pick up the last, and that is your India-Sri Lanka ties. India-Sri Lanka ties. Everybody knows that we have ancient ties with Sri Lanka. And don't write these things in examination because the words would be wasted also. So we have ancient ties with Sri Lanka on account of Buddhism, as King Ashoka sent his son Mahendra and daughter Sanghmitra for spread of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. But if you look at the demography of Sri Lanka, the vast majority of Sri Lanka is that of what? It is that of Sinhalese. It's more than 60%. In fact, 64% is that of Sinhalese. And 14 to 15%, you can take roughly 15%, is that of Tamils. Then there are other groups also. 15% is that of Tamils. Now, when we talk about Sri Lanka is an island nation, and the main revenue earner for Sri Lanka is tea, coffee, also tourism. Tourism is one of the biggest revenue earner. Recently in 2022, it suffered from the economic crisis. And economic crisis was due to the economics meltdown and also due to the COVID-19 pandemic, because the tourism industry of Sri Lanka suffered because of that. And Sri Lanka was under debt. Sri Lanka had to pay even China $7.2 billion, which was 55% of its economic depth. Here, $7.5 billion, not 2, $7.5 billion, which was 55% of its economic depth. And this was the reason why. But when you talk about Sri Lanka, we can see there were many issues which have been settled. For example, there was a dispute between India and Sri Lanka which was called as Kachativu Island dispute. Very small island in the Palk state. And this was very famous also because in March every year, this island was visited. In March every year, this island was visited by people from both India and Sri Lanka, as it was famous for the St. Anthony festival. In 1969, an issue crept in between the ties, and that was what? That the Sri Lankan police were present on this island, to which India raised objection. But the matter was settled after the leaders of the two sides signed an agreement in 1974, and since it was nearer to Sri Lanka, it was transferred to Sri Lanka. India did not say that it has a control over this island or it is claiming this island anyhow. So it was transferred to Sri Lanka. The matter settled. Also, there is fishermen issue between India and Sri Lanka, and fishermen, because the maritime boundary between India and Sri Lanka has not been properly demarcated. 500 fishermen have died because of attacks from each other side. That's a concern for India. But the most contentious issue between India and Sri Lanka is the Tamil problem. Although China is a factor also between India and Sri Lanka, but the most contentious issue between India and Sri Lanka is the Tamil problem. And this is Sri Lanka. You can see this area of Sri Lanka is called as what? It is called as Jaffna. Clear? Jaffna. And the northern part of Sri Lanka, this part, Jaffna, or this part, as well as the eastern part, this area, eastern part. Now these parts, whether it is the northern part, whether it is the eastern part, they are inhabited by whom? They are inhabited by the Tamils mainly. So these parts are inhabited by the Tamils. So we are saying that 50% of the population is that of Tamils. So this part is inhabited by the Tamils. And as far as Tamils are concerned, there are two types of Tamils in Sri Lanka. One type of Tamil in Sri Lanka is called as what? One type of Tamil is called as the Indian Tamil. And second type of Tamil is called as what? It is called as the Shillong Tamil. Clear? But if you look at the Shillong Tamils, Shillong Tamils are those who came to Sri Lanka in the ancient times, and they have settled there for long. They have proper citizenship also, so not an issue. But in the 19th century, we can see the British were responsible for taking the Tamils to Sri Lanka. And when British were responsible for taking Tamils to Sri Lanka, they were mainly taken for work as plantation workers in coffee and tea plantation. For this purpose they were taken. And one of the purpose of British taking the Tamils to Sri Lanka was also to check the dominance of Sinhalese majority. Clear, Sinhalese majority. And if you look at the data, that before the independence of Sri Lanka, Tamils were present to the tune of 30% in government jobs. But if you look at the data of 1975, this percentage reduced to 5% only. 5% only. Clear? Earlier, Tamils were not responsible for demanding a separate homeland. But the demand of separate homeland started in 1958-59. But how? Because in 1956, see, if we talk about the first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, his name was Senanayake. He said that we won't be responsible for discriminating against the Tamils. We won't be responsible for that. Clear? Now, 1956 is the year when the Official Language Act of Sri Lanka is passed. And in this act, Sinhalese is made as the only official language of Sri Lanka, which is resented by the Tamils, because earlier Tamil was the official language along with Sinhalese and English too. Now this is resented by the Tamils. They are responsible for criticizing this action. Now when they carried out the protest, an assurance was given by the government that for the eastern and for the northern regions, Tamil would be used in education, in government offices, in administration. But this assurance which was given by the government was never implemented. This assurance which was given by the government was never implemented. And this led to the formation of Liberation Tigers for Tamil Eelam, that is LTTE, and they demanded what? They demanded a separate homeland for the Tamils. They demanded a separate homeland for the Tamils. Clear? So, homeland from the Tamils. And they were responsible for carrying out a number of attacks on the Sri Lankan politicians, assassinating them, injuring them. So, this was done. 1987 is the year when Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi of India ordered what? Ordered the droppings of food and medical relief for the Tamilian population in Sri Lanka. But this relief measure which was taken by India breached the airspace of Sri Lanka. They did not take permission of Sri Lankan government. And if suppose they would have taken the permission of Sri Lankan government would have denied. Now this operation was called as Operation Eagle. Clear? Operation Eagle, 1987, earlier in 1987. And India was criticized also worldwide that India has a big brother attitude towards its neighbors. It's responsible for imposing its will on neighbors as such. So that was criticism of India. The same year 1987, Jayawardene Rajiv Accord was signed. And according to this accord, autonomous region of northern and eastern part for the Tamils would be carved out. English, Tamil and Sinhalese would be made official languages. That was also said. And autonomous region for Tamils would be given, so that all these things were said. But this was never implemented. and also in the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord. There were earlier accord also. I forget to tell you that earlier accords included what? It included Nehru-Totewala Accord for the Tamil issue, which was signed in the year 1954. It includes Sastry-Srimovo Accord, which was signed in the year 1963, and this was called as the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord, which was signed in 1987. Clear? So the IPKF was sent, the Indian Peacekeeping Force was sent to check the LTT activity. But this policy of Rajiv Gandhi boomeranged, and this led to the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi also. Because if you read the memoirs of these people who went to Sri Lanka under the IPKF, they were responsible for writing, with whom we are fighting. They are our own people. Whom we are attacking, they are our own people. Clear? So this led to a big discontent among the Tamils, and they were responsible for attacking and assassinating Rajiv Gandhi. After this, we can see that India's policy towards Sri Lanka was of indifference. But this gave ample space for Mr. Rajapakse to crush the Tamil rebellion, and for this purpose he took help from Pakistan also. Sri Lanka always has a policy. Although today Sri Lanka says that it follows the policy of India first. Like we say, we follow a policy of neighborhood first. Now we say, no neighborhood first, Asia first. But Sri Lanka says that it follows a policy today of India first. Although one policy of Sri Lanka is also that Sri Lanka wants to give strategic space to both China and Pakistan in order to check the hegemonistic design of India. So that has been a policy of Sri Lanka also always. Now this boomeranged, and we can see that after this, Rajapakse was responsible for crushing the Tamil rebellion with the help of Pakistani forces, in which he was accused of human rights violation, war crimes, and that would take place if you do not care and brutally crush the movement. Clear? But the UN resolution on violation of human rights by Mr. Rajapakse, when it was tabled, India was a part of it, condemning Rajapakse's action. Earlier, India condemned the Rajapakse action, and this was responsible for bringing Sri Lanka more and more closer to Pakistan and also China. More and more closer to Pakistan and China. And also you can see, although India would have utilized what? India would have utilized its position to pressurize Sri Lanka and pressurize Sri Lanka to give a limited degree of autonomy to the Tamils. That India never did. Clear? That India never did. You can see that as far as India is concerned, India has very well developed ties with Sri Lanka. Bilateral ties with Sri Lanka. India and Sri Lanka are both members of BIMSTEC. India and Sri Lanka are both members of SAFTA. India and Sri Lanka conduct joint naval coastal guard exercise called SRINEX. India has invested 5,000 crore in Jaffna for development project. India is also developing the West Container Terminal in Colombo along with Japan. India was responsible for providing financial assistance for KKS Harbour. So the list is enormous. Lengthy list of India's help to Sri Lanka. And the Chinese interference in Sri Lanka started with the development of Hambantota. Initially, Hambantota was offered to India. When India declined, then this went to whom? This went to China. And China readily accepted because it was suitable for string of pearls theory. Clear. Although Sri Lanka says that Hambantota is on lease to China, but the Chinese speak in a different manner. They say that the agreement which was reached between India and China speaks that this lease can be further extended. And related to Hambantota, you know about the string of pearls theory and how it is responsible for challenging India's security and what was Project Mosam as such. Clear. Project Mosam as such. But in order to do a balancing act, the airport near Hambantota was offered to India for its development, and we can see that Sri Lanka tried to check its relationship with India as well as its relationship with China. Fine, China. And recently, India was responsible for bailing out Sri Lanka from the economic crisis that it has suffered. Economic crisis it has suffered because the IMF financial assistance of more than $2 billion which went to Sri Lanka was to be given assurance by at least 3 countries. Its engagement with Sri Lanka is more. One is India, second is what? Second is Japan, third is China. And the economic meltdown and damage to the tourist industry because of COVID pandemic. So this was a accumulating effect which resulted in the economic crisis of Sri Lanka. So India bailed out Sri Lanka also. So today Sri Lanka follows a policy which is called as Asia First policy. Not Asia First, India First policy. So when former Pakistan's Prime Minister Mr. Imran Khan Niazi wanted to address the Sri Lankan Parliament, he was disallowed to do so because this can irk India. Clear. Right on this relation, complete the syllabus. Fine. So complete the syllabus. Write down India Sri Lanka ties. Sri Lanka is a island nation strategically located in the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka is an island nation strategically located in the Indian Ocean. I'll solve the queries after discussing this, after dictating this. The ancient linkage with Sri Lanka. The ancient linkage with Sri Lanka is due to Buddhism. Ancient linkage with Sri Lanka is due to Buddhism. Due to Buddhism. Emperor Asoka sent his son Mahindra and daughter Sanghmitra for spreading Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Sinhalese, who are mainly Buddhist, is the most dominant group in Sri Lanka. And constitute dominant group in Sri Lanka and constitute 64% of the total population. 64% of the total population. Total population. 64% of the total population. Tamils is the second largest group. Tamils is the second largest groups. constituting 15% of the total population. Tamils is the second largest group, constituting 15% of the total population. There are two types of Tamils. There are two types of Tamils in Sri Lanka. There are two types of Tamils in Sri Lanka. The Ceylon Tamils, who have migrated in the ancient times, and Indian Tamils, who were taken in the 19th century, to work as plantation workers in Sri Lanka by the British, who were taken in 19th century to work as plantation workers by the British in Sri Lanka. They are called as Indian Tamils. And we can see the main area which is Tamil inhabited is the northern part, which includes the Jaffna region and also the eastern part. Right down. The main area inhabited by the Tamils, include the northern part, that's Jaffna region, include the northern part, and one part of that is Jaffna region, and also the eastern part, Clear? See, one reason which I have missed is devolution of power in Sri Lanka is not easy. And that's not easy. Why? Because Sri Lanka is a unitary system. That's why devolution of power in Sri Lanka, had it been federation, then the devolution of power would have been easy. But since it is unitary system, the devolution of power is not very easy. Clear? So that's the area which is inhabited by the Tamils. And we can see in 1956, one of the reasons of British taking Tamils to Sri Lanka was also to check the dominance of Sinhalese. Right on. Another reason for British taking Tamils to Sri Lanka, that another reason for taking Tamils to Sri Lanka by the British was to check the dominance of Sinhalese. Now the Tamils, they accuse Sinhalese of discrimination against them. Write down. The Tamils accuse Sinhalese of discrimination against them. The Tamils accuse Sinhalese of discrimination against them. And we can see the effect of this discrimination, because before the independence of Sri Lanka, Tamils used to occupy 20 to 30% of government jobs, which reduced to 5% in 1975. Write down. Before independence in Sri Lanka, Tamils used to occupy 20 to 30% of government jobs, government jobs, government jobs, 20 to 30% of government jobs, which reduced to 5% in 1975, which reduced to 5% in 1975, 5% in 1975. Clear? Now this was the result of the discrimination. The I've said to you that the first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mr. Senanayake, he said that he won't be responsible for discriminating against the Tamil. But 1956 is the year when the Official Language Act of Sri Lanka is passed, and Sinhalese is made the only official language of Sri Lanka. Write down, in 1956, the Official Language Act of Sri Lanka was passed. The Official Language Act of Sri Lanka was passed. Language Act of Sri Lanka was passed. And Sinhalese was made the only official language of Sri Lanka. And Sinhalese was made the only official language of Sri Lanka. The only official language of Sri Lanka. Only official language of Sri Lanka. This was opposed by the Tamils, and they carried a protest. This was opposed by the Tamils, and they carried the protest. And they carried out the protest. And an assurance was given by the government that Tamil would be used as official language in administration, government departments, as well as education in northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka, but it was never implemented. Right on, an assurance was given that Tamil would be used, as official language, Tamil would be used as official language, Tamil would be used as official language. I'll solve your queries. Let me complete this. Official language in government offices, administration, as well as education, in the northern and eastern part, but this was never implemented. This was never implemented. Clear? So never implementation of this took place. Now this led to what? This led to the formation of Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, which demanded a separate Eelam, that is homeland, for Tamils in northern and the eastern part. Right down. This led to the formation of Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, that demanded a separate homeland. Homeland means Eelam in Tamil. That demanded a separate homeland for Tamils, in the northern and the eastern part. Clear? Fine. And they were responsible for attacks on the government agencies and a number of assassinations. Around LTT was responsible for attacking government institutions, attacking government institutions, and also political assassination, and also political assassination, also political assassination. So this was done by the Tamils. Clear? In 1987, India provided relief measure to Tamilian population through Operation Eagle. And also the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord was reached in the same year. Write down. In 1987, India provided relief measures. India provided relief measures to Tamil population, in Sri Lanka, through Operation Eagle, in Sri Lanka through Operation Eagle. Clear? And also in the same year, Rajiv Jayawardene Accord was signed. Write down. Also in the same year, the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord was signed. Also in the same year, the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord was signed. And this accord was for making Tamil official language of Sri Lanka along with Sinhalese and English. Write down. This accord was for making Tamils. The official language of Sri Lanka along with Sinhalese and English. And this pattern existed before independence of Sri Lanka also. Along with English and Sinhalese. Clear? Sinhalese. Fine. And second is what? Second is not only this, a limited degree of autonomy should be given to the Tamils in the northern and the eastern part. Write down. And a limited degree of autonomy should be given to the Tamils. In the northern and the eastern part. Clear? So this was also said under the agreement, and that is called as the Rajiv. But the third part of the agreement also says that Indian peacekeeping force would be sent to Sri Lanka to check the conflict between the Sri Lankan forces and the LTT. Write down. It also stated that Indian peacekeeping force would be sent to Sri Lanka. To check the clash between Tamils and Sri Lankan forces. And earlier, when we are talking about 1987, the relief measures given by India, although this was bypassing the airspace of Sri Lanka without taking its permission, airdroppings were made. That operation was called as Operation Eagle. But the IPKF was sent to Sri Lanka under the Operation Pavan. Write down. The IPKF was sent to Sri Lanka under Operation Pavan. But I told you that if you look at the memoirs of these people, the Indian army officers, that they said that with whom we are responsible for fighting, we are fighting our own people. So this was bound to boomerang. So this policy of India failed, and it resulted, the sending of IPKF failed, and it resulted in the assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. And then we can see that India's indifference towards the Tamil problem. Clear. That gave adequate space to Mr. Rajapakse to align with Pakistan and crush the LTTE. Clear. Right on, the IPKF mission failed. The IPKF mission failed. Mission failed, which resulted in the assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Which resulted in the assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Assassination of Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, which gave adequate space to Mr. Rajapakse. Which gave adequate space to Mr. Rajapakse. Rajapakse to crush LTTE, to crush LTTE with the help of Pakistani army, with the help of Pakistani army. Clear. And one policy is always of Sri Lanka. That policy is what? That Sri Lanka is always responsible for providing strategic space to Pakistan and China in order to check the dominance of India. Write down. Sri Lanka has a policy of providing. Sri Lanka has a policy of providing strategic space to Pakistan and China, in order to check the dominance of India, Clear. Although we can say that Mr. Rajapakse was accused of war crimes and violation of human rights, and India was a part of the resolution which was passed criticizing it. Now this pushed Sri Lanka closer to China and Pakistan. Closer to China and Pakistan. Clear? Mr. Rajapakse, write down, Mr. Rajapakse was accused of war crimes and human rights violation. Mr. Rajapakse was accused of war crimes and human rights violation. War crimes and human right violation. And the resolution criticizing Mr. Rajapakse's action. That's a UN resolution, human rights. And the resolution criticizing Mr. Rajapakse action was supported by India, and this further pushed Sri Lanka closer to China and Pakistan. Write down, this further pushed Sri Lanka closer to China and Pakistan. This further pushed Sri Lanka closer to China and Pakistan. Clear? Fine. So, and as far as India-Sri Lanka ties are concerned, both are members of SAFTA, both are members of BIMSTEC. Sri Lanka was responsible for supporting India when India conducted the second nuclear experiment also. So all these things can be written in India-Sri Lanka relation. And India was also responsible for bailing out recently Sri Lanka from the economic crisis it suffered in 2022. Fine. So all these things, let's end it in a on a sweet note as such. So all these things should be written by us in dealing with Indian-Sri Lankan ties. Now let's look at some of your questions in between. Now, what is the difference between Taliban, Haqqani network and terrorist? I have stated. See, all these are terrorists only, whether it's Taliban or Haqqani network. They are terrorists only. Why is the hostility between Pakistan and Afghanistan increasing recently? I told you that's mainly due to the demarcation of boundary between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Afghanistan wants the Durand line to be shifted eastward. So more Pakhtuns would be coming inside Afghanistan. So that's one thing. And I have one minor doubt that why Sri Lanka is always shown with Indian map. Because India is a big country, and whenever you are responsible for depicting big country, nearby nations would be adjusted in the map. It's not that they are a part of India. That's a sovereign notion. Sri Lanka come under the exclusive maritime zone of India, and on the other hand, Sri Lanka has also its exclusive economic zone. See, sometimes what happens, the maritime boundary between the two countries can be also demarcated if they overlap, if the exclusive economic zones overlap each other. And because the nations are situated very close by, very close by they are situated. So a demarcation would be made. It's not that separately they will draw a borderline that this can be considered as a mean point, and this would be the exclusive economic zone of India, and this would be that of Sri Lanka. Otherwise, so closely related that's very hard to demarcate. Then Sri Lanka experienced civil war because of language issue, but India has several language, but still no. See, we are a good society, we are a civilized society. Why should we fight? No civil war on the basis of language. It was not on the basis of language. It was more on the basis of discrimination. If you continue discrimination against any part of your population, then certainly there would be a civil war. It's not that the language is a barrier. There are so many languages in India. I go to Karnataka, I speak Kannada also. Sometimes 1 or 2 lines about Kannada just for joy. I speak Bengali also. That does not mean that that does not mean that the language difference between us would be a barrier. And there are so much good languages in India, Maithili, Bengali, or very sweet languages. Now, so there should not be civil war on the basis of, it was mainly on the basis of discrimination of Tamils. Okay, last, what is currency swapping system? See, currency swapping system can be of different kind. See, currency swapping system can be to settle BOP crisis sometimes. For example, we have a currency swapping system with Japan, and the purpose is that it would be utilized whenever BOP crisis is suffered by either nation, either of the two nations. So they suffer from BOP crisis, currency swapping agreement would be utilized. Clear? For this purpose, we have allocated more than $75 billion. We have a currency swapping agreement with UAE also, but that is of different kind. That's for bilateral trade. That we won't be dependent on the dollars, international currency, but we would be using our domestic currency for that purpose. And if the concern is that how the exchange rate would be predetermined, the exchange rate would be predetermined. Clear? Now, let's sum up this relation, end up this relation. Write down. India is responsible for establishing. India is responsible for establishing the West Container Terminal. West Container Terminal at Colombo, along with Japan, West Container Terminal at Colombo, along with Japan, has provided help for development of, KKS Harbour, has provided help for development of KKS Harbour. KKS Harbour is developing port, is developing airport near Hambantota, is developing airport near Hambantota. That is Chinese. Hambantota. Clear. Provided 5,000 crore assistance for development projects in Jaffna. For development projects in Jaffna. For development projects in Jaffna. Development projects in Jaffna. Clear. So all these things. Both are members of BIMSTEC and SAFTA. Both are members of BIMSTEC and SAFTA. BIMSTEC and SAFTA. BIMSTEC and SAFTA. And India was responsible for recently bailing out. And India was responsible for recently bailing out Sri Lanka from the economic crisis. Economic crisis. As the $2.5 billion financial assistance which was to come from the IMF, it wanted assurance from at least 3 nations, which included India, China and Japan. Write down as the $2.5 billion assistance, as $2.5 billion assistance coming from the IMF, to Sri Lanka, wanted assurance from See, India has not built Ram Setu, and the idea is being contemplated that we should be signing this agreement, but it has not been finalized. 2.5 billion financial assistance coming from IMF. Needed assurance from 3 countries. China, India, and Japan. Assurance from 3 countries, China, India, and Japan. Is that clear? And we can see it suffered from economic crisis, not only due to the economic meltdown, but also due to the damage to tourism industry and COVID-19 pandemic. Right on. Sri Lanka suffered from economic crisis. Not only due to economic meltdown in that country, but also due to damage to tourism industry, and the COVID-19 pandemic, damage to the tourism industry and the COVID-19 pandemic. Clear? So all these things. Chinese interference is a concern, and you can write about that because we have already discussed earlier the string of pearls theory. This much in India, Sri Lanka relations. Thank you so much. I would be returning to your classes again because I have not completed with you disaster management. I have not completed with you biotechnology. And I think that one part of environment I'll do when I come also. That has been left. Fine. Thank you so much. Bengal. Bye.